Kanye's tweet that got him in a lot of trouble. So he said, "I'm a bit sleepy tonight, but when I wake up, I'm going Defcon 3 on Jewish people." So that's the part that got him in trouble. But the reason I asked you about the connection to Hebrew Israelites is the next part. It says, the funny thing is, I actually can't be anti-Semitic because black people are actually Jew also. You guys have toyed with me, talking about Jews there, you guys have toyed with me and tried to blackball anyone who ever opposes your agenda. So, Defcon, now that's creepy because it's actually, I mean, it's Defcon, Defcon, right? It's Defcon, and that stands for gosh, I forget what it stands for. It's Defense
Readiness Condition.
Yeah, Defcon. So the def is for defense.
There's 5 levels to it, and they got colors associated with them, and it's your state of readiness or alertness.
Yeah, so def is for defense, and con is for condition. And so to say Defcon, now he probably thinks it's Defcon, right? But saying you're going Defcon 3 on Jewish people, I can see why some companies would not want to get it. And again, I come from
all caps on Jewish people. Like that's he's yelling all caps.
Yeah. So on the one hand, I understand companies saying, can't deal with that. On the other hand, as someone who has a lot of experience with mental illness, if he's going through a period of some mental problems, then you'd say, okay, he's not fully in control of his faculties at that point. He doesn't sound like he's apologized, but it doesn't sound like he's saying, hey, I'm just crazy or something like that. So I'd be somewhat sympathetic, not to the idea, but okay, if this person is not in his right mind when he's saying this, then he could point that out. But at the same time, even if he's just not in his right mind, that doesn't represent his actual views. If he gets out of this phase a couple months from now or something like that, then you'd still say, hey, if I'm a company like Adidas or something like that, I do not want to be tied to someone who's going to blurt out stuff like that every time he's going through a rough patch. You just can't. You need some stability or something like that.
Right. Now, there are people coming saying, well, Kanye has a history of saying things like this. Now people are coming out, and apparently there's examples of other interviews where the interview was heavily edited to take out some anti-Jewish stuff. I guess there was a Letterman interview they're saying that was the case with, and some stuff like that now. So people were saying that. We don't know about all that, but it was interesting because one of the things that really started this too was in regards to the White Lives Matter. Tucker Carlson interviewed Kanye, and he said a couple odd things during the interview, to put it mildly, but the stuff that was edited out, somehow some of it got leaked, and that was the stuff that included more interesting or incendiary stuff as well, including some stuff you could say, wait, that's Hebrew Israelite type stuff. And that was interesting too. So I did a show on this. We did some analysis of it. It was Kanye West Talks Hebrew Israelism, explaining Kanye West's Hebrew Israelite rhetoric. It was a couple weeks ago when this all jumped off or something. But years before that, I did a show on Kanye West. When I say years, what was the date on this? I can't tell right now. How do you even see the date on your own streams? I can't even see the date on my own stream, but
they keep changing stuff to me. Makes it hard.
This is three years ago, and I titled it "Kanye West Going Hebrew Israelite: 400-Year Prophecy." So 3 years ago, he was saying some stuff that was toying with the idea of the 400-year prophecy, which is something that some Hebrew Israelites believe about the year 2019, and now they've changed a little bit because really nothing happened in 2019. In relationship to 1619 to 2019, if you remember, we did a video in VA once that was about the 400-year prophecy. Well, Kanye was toying with that. So I did a program explaining some of the stuff he was saying, but it kind of went under the radar at the time. And it didn't seem to have the anti-Semitic statements. I just caught wind of this is some Hebrew Israelite stuff. But in the Tucker Carlson interview, he still first and foremost identified as a Christian, but then said, as a Christian, I also believe that I'm a Jew. But,
that's what I was wondering about, because let's go back to, and this is why I wanted you to join me here. But so he says, I'm a bit sleepy tonight, but when I wake up, I'm going Defcon 3 on Jewish people. The funny thing is, I actually can't be anti-Semitic. He says it's impossible for him to be anti-Semitic because black people are actually Jew also. So in the little bit that I did look at, here he's saying black people are Jews. But when I've seen him address why he's calling himself a Jew, it was because I'm a Christian. And so there you could find a coherent point, right? Because you could be saying, we're grafted into the same tree, right? We're Christians are grafted through Jesus Christ into the same tree. But so it sounds like he's saying two different things. One, that he's Jewish because he's a Christian, but there it sounds like he's saying he's a Jew because he's black, which sounds like Hebrew Israelite stuff.
Well, yeah. So here's another quote. Listen to this one. This one wasn't in the tweet. This, I believe, was from the Tucker Carlson interview, and I can't remember if this part was cut or not, but it was from that Tucker Carlson interview. Quote, Planned Parenthood was made by Margaret Sanger, a known eugenics, with the KKK to control the Jew population. So, Planned Parenthood, which is primary service it offers, of course, is killing babies, abortion. And Margaret Sanger, the founder, was a eugenicist, which is, this idea of controlling certain populations and trying to find out what traits you want to have in a society and all this stuff, and working towards eliminating human weeds. And that's true, and of course, PP tries to distance themselves from that. And then it says to control the Jew population. Now, look, he explains what he means by that. When I say Jew, I mean the 12 lost tribes of Judah, the blood of Christ, who the people known as the race black really are. This is who our people are. So there, I think it's a lot more clear, even though there's some muddiness in this clip. He's identifying Jew with black. Here's the muddiness. 12 tribes of Judah. It would be 12 tribes of Israel. Usually Hebrew Israelites will a lot of times identify themselves as Judah. But there he's got 12 lost tribes of Judah. Judah is just one of the 12. But then he says the blood of Christ. So that means of the same type or lineage or stock, who the people known as the black race really are. So there it seems to be identified directly with that, which that's basically a Hebrew Israelite idea. But I do want to point out, like Nate pointed out in the live chat, it did say black people are Jews also. Funny thing is, I can't be innocent because black people are actually Jew also. You see what I'm saying there? Also, that's a key word. If he means what he said there, that's not harsh Hebrew Israelism. That's kind of a mild Hebrew Israelism there.
Yeah, maybe because there will be people for whom this is new information and aren't familiar with what the Black Hebrew Israelites teach. So, I mean, this will sound very weird, and Vocab, you can give us the nutshell version of it. But notice, we're familiar with Jewish people in the world. Imagine someone imagine a Japanese guy coming along saying, the Japanese are the real Jews. You'd be like, what? Yeah, because lost tribes, and we're a lost tribe or something like that. Or By the way,
there are a group of Japanese who say they're the real Jews.
That's interesting.
There really is, but go ahead.
So I'm a quarter Norwegian. I can imagine like Norwegians coming along saying, we're the true Jews, or any other group in the world who doesn't seem to be Jewish. Whereas, it's weird because if he were saying there's some mixture or something like that, then that would make sense. Like, I'm actually a very small part Jewish. I'm 2.7% Jewish. I had one of those DNA tests. So 2.7%, something like that. That's not because I'm I wouldn't call myself Jewish because of that. There's just a lot of, almost everyone's mixture of something at some point. But that's not what the Black Hebrew Israelites are saying. It's not, hey, we have some, we had some ancestor who came down or something like that. Who, in other words, they're not saying, hey, I had some Jew, like we normally think of Jews, who came down and his DNA was mingled with the rest of the population of this African country or something like that. It's that Jews, as they really, you could correct me if I'm wrong here, Jews were actually black centuries ago, and then they ended up in Africa, and the people, is this a claim? The people who claim to be Jews now are not. They were from some other group that then took over the identity of Jews.
Yes, you got it. So let me read a brief excerpt. This is a book by a Hebrew Israelite named Jael. Who are the Gentiles? Jeremiah, Israel. For Israelites, by Israelites. And look, he's got a Ashkenazi man ostensibly on the cover, right? Just want to read a page from page 109 here. Jesus, let me. So there's going to be a lot of anti-Semitic stuff, but you're going to see this is Hebrew Israelite proper, not Kanye's muddy version. The scriptures prove that the people in the land called Israel today are not God's chosen people. They are converts, not bloodline Jews. They only trace their heritage through their mothers and not their fathers. Both scientific and biological evidence shows us that many of the Jews in Israel are from the Ashkenazi bloodline. They are from Poland and Russia by birth. We read the Bible scriptures earlier that showed us Ashkenazis was one of Joseph's sons, and the Bible refers to them as making up the Isles of the Gentiles. These are the true bloodline Gentiles of the Bible. It is impossible for the Jews claiming they are Jews around the world to be Jews when they are of Ashkenazi descent. Anywhere in the Bible does it say God's chosen people were from Europe, Russia, or Poland? It is such a joke, and people fall for it. They will fall for anything. They do absolutely no research whatsoever. The highest percentage of Ashkenazi bloodline on ancestry DNA websites belongs to Europeans. They are part of what makes up Gentiles in the world today. We, Jeremiah and Jael, are not saying this. It is coming from their mouths. So he's saying they're even admitting that they're frauds is what he's saying there. But that's a perfect example. So yeah, the ancient Israelites lost their identity when they went into Africa. And then the people now who claim to be Jews, according to this schema, which I don't agree with, it's one of the main things I fight against, are actually frauds, imposters, usually of Khazar descent or Edomite descent, specifically Amalekites, or perhaps Japhetic. But in any way, whatever it is, not Semitic. That's the Hebrew Israelite claim. But Kanye has a milder version where he's saying, it seems, Jews also are, and us too. Usually Hebrew Israelites have one or the other. And unless Kanye is accidentally putting in the word also, he seems to be indicating, yeah, they are, but so are we. But we'll see. We'll see if he continues on and explains it further. I hope he doesn't go hardcore more Hebrew Israelite. You know what I mean? It's bad enough as it is.
Yeah, and so break this down for us. So there were obviously black people in Africa before the Exodus or anything like that. And so is the claim that there were already people in Africa, but the Jews are a specific group of black people, and then like during the captivities and so on, then they ended up in Africa, and so they're black, but they're Jews, and they're around other blacks, and then the black people who were Jews ended up being taken to North and South America as on slave ships. Is that
yeah,
correct?
that's most versions Hebrew Israelism have that as their backstory. So they would be around other people on the continent of Africa, but some would be essentially native and others who had been transferred during the destruction of Jerusalem. So I just read a book the other day that's a really famous Hebrew Israelite book by Rudolf Windsor, and it's called From Babylon to Timbuktu. And he makes the claim without any sources that it says 1 million Jews during the fall of Jerusalem when it happened there, 70 AD under the Roman Empire. 1 million Jews fled into Africa. He doesn't give any sources. He doesn't say where in Africa they went. None of that. And here's what's interesting about that, for example. But this is a common thing that they'll say. If you read Tacitus, Roman historian, he talks about the siege of Jerusalem towards the end of one of his histories. And when he talks about it, he estimates that there was about 600,000 people in Jerusalem. Well, if Tacitus' numbers are anywhere near right, 600,000 in Jerusalem, then how could 1 million flee into Africa? You know, I mean, this is the siege of Jerusalem, and this is when people are mainly talking about. You see what I'm saying? There's real problems with the way they put it, because they've got to get Africa, certain parts of it, really populated heavily. So then these same folks can be taken over into the slave trade. And the basic claim is the folks who went into the slave trade, those are the Israelites. The ones who didn't get taken usually aren't. But there are other versions of Hebrew Israelism, which include a lot more Jews on the African continent as far as the theory will go. For example, another guy that's in the news right now, Kyrie Irving, he tweeted a book, well, a movie based upon a book, which you can get on Amazon Prime. And in that, that guy, he actually believes that most of Africa seems to be populated with Israelites. In fact, he actually thinks that Israel is actually in Africa. He actually thinks the country has been switched as well. And Kyrie Irving of the Brooklyn Nets tweeted this guy's documentary called From Hebrews to Negroes, and he put it out there, right? And the Rolling Stone did an article on this Kyrie Irving discussion and tweet where he's tweeting this. So this has just happened a couple of days ago. So these are like mainstream ideas, you know, where ideas, Hebrew Israelism's ideas are getting mainstream. But yeah, that's the basic essence of Hebrew Israelism. And so usually they say the people known as Jews are frauds. Like here's an example of a book, The Jewish Masquerade. I mean, look at the cover of this. The Relationship Between Modern Jews and Ancient Hebrew Israelites by John Brinson. The whole point of this book is that modern Jews are imposters. That's what he's saying. So usually that's the way they go with it. But Kanye doesn't seem to be going all the way there. Although he is saying other stuff that is clearly anti-Semitic, whether he thinks they're Jews or fraudulent or not. This ain't a game. I'm going to use you as an example to show the Jewish people that told you to call me that no one can threaten or influence me. I told you this is war. Now I'm going to get you some business. I just think that's what they're about, is making money. That's a reference to Jared Kushner and apparently kind of perhaps all Jews, because he also said to Tucker Carlson, I prefer my kids' new Hanukkah from Kwanzaa. At least it will come with some financial engineering. Just sort of like I don't know, some of these are almost like backhanded compliments, but like this is the kind of stuff he's saying along with it. But a lot of this stuff is common Hebrew Israelite fare that he's saying, you know? So it's not just Kanye, now it's Kyrie.
Oh man! Someone just posted during the Kanye interview. He was asked by his Jewish handler, "Have you been to the Holocaust Museum?" Kanye responded, "Have you visited Planned Parenthood? Because that's our Holocaust Museum."
I think he did say something like that.
Yeah. It's interesting the parallel between Kanye and the Black Hebrew Israelites for basically emotional reasons, because you know this, the last time you and I went out and talked to some Hebrew, I was just standing there holding the camera, but when you were asking them to defend a claim they were making, the leader of that group just started saying, but I was enslaved, and he started running down what had happened to Black people in the United States. And you pointed out, you say, hey, that's true, but that has nothing to do with defending your point. This is an appeal to emotion. In other words, look how oppressed I am, therefore agree with what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But it seems to be something like that with the Black Hebrew Israelite, because the actual arguments are pretty silly. You don't have scientific evidence that you go back to Israel and so on. So it's more along the lines of, it looks like, hey, we've been oppressed. Jews were oppressed in the Bible and we identify with them, but now we're actually going to claim to be them. And so it seems to be grounded in emotion and then trying to trying to justify it rationally. But with Kanye, it seems similar with his comments because, again, I saw part of his discussion with Lex Friedman, who's Jewish, and Kanye was saying that basically in his business dealings over the years, when he gets into an argument about something that's being done or a contract or something, someone will say, he'll say, I'm going to expose you over what you've done in this agreement. Mm-hmm. And they would say, according to him, if you do, we'll call you an anti-Semite or something like that. So he's interpreting this. So he gets angry over this over years. And he gets angry about this over years and then starts, it sounds like what he's saying is that Jews are weaponizing the Holocaust in order to block criticism for things they're doing. And he's interpreting that as like this conspiracy. And he's mad about that. And so I'm thinking of the parallels in terms of something where you're enraged at someone for doing something, and then that starts affecting your thinking about the group and who you are. And then the Hebrew Israelites come along and say, hey, we're actually the true Jews here. And I don't know, it looks like that, like he's just had some bad experiences and so on. And then he's concluding that there's a conspiracy. Because, I mean, he was pointing out when Lex was talking, Lex was like, look, when you talk about Jewish controlled media and Jewish controlled this and Jewish controlled that and these conspiracy theories, that's dangerous talk. That's dangerous language. And Kanye's pointing out, like, what are you talking about? Look at all the Jewish men who work in these companies and so on, who are these CEOs and so on. And, you know, that's weird to conclude because there are, let's say, disproportionately more Jews, let's say, you know, as Hollywood executives and so on. Therefore, it's a conspiracy. That's weird thinking. That would be like, I mean, when I was in college, there were disproportionately more Indians and Asians going into computer engineering and so on. I don't think, there's a conspiracy. There's a conspiracy among Indians and Asians to take over technology. It seems like in your culture that was just more emphasized to have jobs like that than it was in other places. And so you tend to gravitate, if you're trying to think about what you're going to do, you tend to gravitate towards things that are highly valued in your culture or in your family. And notice it's not, why would you look down on that, right? Why would you think, look at all these Indians and Asians going into computers, shame on them. And so many of them are going into engineering. It's a conspiracy. Why don't you not think, well, you know, good on them for going out and getting some really high paying jobs and so on. And similarly with you know, Jews in Hollywood or whatever you want to say it as part of a conspiracy theory, banking or this and that. Why is it not just like, hey, you know, culturally they wanted to get in jobs like that, and that's not a bad thing to become doctor, lawyer, executive, things like that. But there's this. It seems that what's going on is he's looking and saying, so many of the people I interact with when I'm doing these business dealings are Jews that it looks like they're controlling everything behind the scenes, rather than, okay, they keep getting really good jobs in the entertainment industry or whatever.
Yeah, Russell Simmons dropped a little IG live. You know, Russell Simmons, you know, Def Jam and all of that. And he talked about that, and he had some interesting perspectives on it. You know, it was a little bit weird. He did the whole namaste thing and all this, but he said some of this is because some of the areas that Jews in America were able to get into, it's because some of the areas were areas WASPs kind of let them be, or areas that they didn't want to be as involved with. And he had an interesting perspective as he ran it down. But his perspective was, well, when you look at, you know, the black community in America, one of the biggest allies as far as another ethnic group has been oftentimes the Jewish community. And he gave example from civil rights struggle and things like that. It was pretty interesting. You know, these are all real hot button issues to just even talk about real tense stuff. And, you know, it's new, but it's not new. I mean, there was tensions in the early church, you know, between the Jews who were less Jewish and those who were more Jewish, you know, the Hebraic widows versus the Hellenized widows. And then you had Christians that that Peter stopped eating with, that Paul recounts in Galatians 2, or I'm sorry, Peter stopped eating with because, some folks came from Jerusalem, and there's all these things, and it's very interesting. And, all I'm trying to say with what I do when I cover some of this is Hebrew Israelism is not helping. It's only making it worse. Let me just show you one more example how a lot of what Kanye's saying is Hebrew Israelite stuff. And this doesn't mean he's a Hebrew Israelite proper, but he's being influenced by Hebrew Israelism. Esau, Edom, Rome, Dr. Binya Yasharel. I'll just read a little quote here from page 395. It is important to substantiate the color of the people of Israel because Edom, Rome, has replaced the true people of the Most High with the white race of people called the Jews. They are imposters who have stolen the identity of the true Hebrew Israelites. Because Edom, Rome knew who the Israelites were, they described them as they carried them off into slavery as Negro, which is a Spanish word meaning black. In fact, Edom, Rome has always known the identity of the descendants of Israel as they do now. So what they're saying is they knew this book is saying, which is a Hebrew Israelite book. The white Jews knew the true Israelites, and so they've always committed atrocities against them because of that. And I mean, this is a thick book. Look at this. This is a huge book, and this is the kind of thing it's all about. And when it says Esau, Edom, Rome, it's just saying like white folks with the Jews sort of as their head, basically. But this is what Kanye is saying, different versions of this, and it's not good.